Hello. Just give you guys a minute to catch up to get on here. Mama. She's been here the whole time. She's just not in frame. She's like right out of frame. Um, I actually have so many strong feelings about what I have just read. Put up the sign and take a break? No, because like I need to go to sleep soon. So like I'm gonna power through this for like 30 minutes and then make myself stop. I'm actually so incensed by what I have read today that I feel it needs like its own video, like an edited video, like an essay response, because it's a fucking bullshit. The whole thing is so like lesbophobic, heteronormative, just like the whole it's like this how can this book be called like I was ranting about this shit like the first time I had my post reading talk. How can this book be like Sapphistries, a global history of lesbian shit, and yet somehow the whole fucking book is lesbian erasure? How? Um Actually, you know what? I will take a break. I need to go put my laundry in the dryer. VF says I agree. It was so pissing me off. Like, there was like a 1 year period or like a 9 month period or something where I stopped reading between like chapter 5 and 6, I think. Like, I am finishing this book because I fucking started it. But even back then, when they were referencing like women dressing up as men in like 13th century Germany or whatever, they were like, she was doing all this gender shit. And I was like, back then you think it's because of gender identity and it wasn't like 1000% because it would be impossible if one of them didn't appear to be a man. um and so yeah, this book has been like very very pissing me off with this shit. um yes, toss stones, the focus on schoolgirls is creepy. I literally there was like 4 times when I was reading that like one page about like the mummies and the babies from um that small African country I'd never heard of before, that I was like, should I stop? Like, can I leave this on the internet after? Like, should I be saying, can I just skip this? Should I be saying this on? I was like, it was very, very creepy. Um, I get that she's like, again, I mentioned before, it's like very, very Western focused, right? I mean, this chapter I think was more focused on Asian countries, really. But um, yeah, it was written by a lesbian, theoretically. VF says, really, it was hard to listen to. Yeah, I think I'm gonna put like a disclaimer or something because I feel very, very strange about the whole thing. Like, I almost wonder if I should cut out that part of the thing because I feel very uncomfortable with it. Um, um, really, what that said to me, like, okay, this author purports to be a lesbian, so take that with a grain of salt, I guess. I really feel like this. She has internalized all of this like really fucking lesbophobic shit. Polar Knight says what happened. I was reading chapter 9 of this book, and it has some stuff about schoolgirls, which is like very, very creepy. Um well, yeah, okay, she purports to be a lesbian, but she teaches women's studies at like NYU or something. So she's obviously some kind of a lib femme. I just thought I don't know. Oh, hey Grey Witch. Okay. Let's go back to the beginning and rip this thing apart. Cuz it was like almost entirely bullshit. It like what in the fuck what did I fucking read, okay? Okay, well actually no. The very beginning part. the, the Chinese novel about that seemed nice. That was nice. Okay. Um okay, but also, okay, I have mentioned this many times. Oh, I'm just going to say this because I'm going to forget to say it later. It's very strange to me. So this book purports to be about history, right? But a lot of the book, like a lot of the book seems to be like, why did they do that? Like, we can let us speculate. Why was it happening this way? And it's like, maybe don't speculate about why. Tell us what you fucking know. Like I've said before, if the book had to be 10 chapters, I mean 10 pages for you to only give us facts instead of all of this like opinion bullshit. Like some of it obviously it's not like opinion, it's like academic, right? It's like comparing one thing to another. But a lot of it is literally just her opinion, and it's just like I don't know. The whole thing is very I don't know. Um Um, gender instead of patriarchy. Yeah, it's oh, that's what I was gonna say about like so okay, if she is a lesbian or a bisexual woman, either way, she clearly has like very internalized this like lesbophobic concept, or at least she keeps fucking harping on about it over and over and over and over again of like the masculine woman and like the feminine woman. And it's like in so many of these cultures, time, the only instance the only peek we're given into lesbianism in that culture, in whichever time period we're looking at it, is like the femme butch dynamic in whichever the culture, in whichever the language it is. I mean, she explained like five different cultures and how to have femme butch basically. And it's like, okay, cultural context is like interesting and whatever, but you didn't explain to us like the history of it in that region, or like she explained like very, very basically. This is something else that I find so annoying. It's like, okay, so she says like there's like an introduction or a preface or something of the book, and she says, I wanted to write a book that like a layperson could read, but that kind of gave you like a global idea of the history. And okay, I understand that. But it's like either make it 1,000 pages or make it like 50 pages. Like, what the fuck is this? This is like she explains to us the concepts and then she doesn't explain to us like the history of the concept or like the real world implications of the concept. Like each of the sub chapters in this chapter, I almost feel like okay, I didn't want to read about this topics anymore because it's all genderist bullshit. But it's just like, do you know what I mean? It's like very like superficial. And so I'm like, "Oh, that's interesting. Tell me more about that." Nope, it's the next topic. It's very annoying to me. Yeah. Um yeah. There was a lot of stuff in this chapter. Honestly, I might take the chapter down from my YouTube channel. There was a lot of like the reading because there was two sections. The thing with the cousins and the thing with the schoolgirls. That both times I was like, "What the fuck am I reading? Like is it legal? Like what is this?" I'm like, I don't know. I feel very very strange about it. I feel like I don't know if it's because she is like a historian and so she's all into cultural relativism, or if because she has been like around the lesbian community in NYU for so or sorry, New York for so long that she has like become like desensitized to BDSM or something. I don't know what the fuck is wrong with this author, but clearly all of this stuff is like very like that's the thing too. She's like this book is meant for lay persons, not academics. Okay. So this stuff that we are all like this is really concerning. It was really uncomfortable to listen to that. Do you think that like the average lesbian, like if this book is meant for a lesbian who wants to know about the global history of lesbianism, do you think they want to read about that? I don't want to read about that. And also like okay, so the whole like age of consent, age of majority thing, obviously in global history that's like a relatively new concept, right? So, I'm not going to say like write a book about lesbians, but you can only count lesbians like if it's from their own perspective, which I've been saying over and over again with this book because everything is like about men who wrote a letter. Like there's like a whole part about harems. I'm pretty sure you can go back. I think it's chapter 5 or chapter 4 where it's like, "Oh yeah, this dude wrote a letter to his pen pal explaining like what he saw his wife and the wife's maid doing together or something." Like unless it's from the perspective of women and they're both like age of majority. You can't confirm these things, okay? True. However, what you can do is not write about like actual children doing this. Like it's very very like I understand that like there is some kind of like, that this is like you're just telling that this is what happened, right? But like also what in the fuck? I don't know. Just as a lesbian reading that, it was like quite disturbing to me. I don't know. Lita says I don't really want to hear about women dressing like dudes. Who cares? Well, like that's the thing too is like okay, obviously it is significant, obviously, right? So like when she's talking about like really back in history, like okay, then when they could own property, then they could have a house together. Okay. Significant, important, significant. Yeah. She's talking about even more in recent history, similar things, practical reasons why this was happening, reasons why because this was so practical and so common among lesbians, it was a part of lesbian culture. Okay, relevant. But I feel like it's like every sub chapter, right? There was like 6 sub chapters in there. It's like every single sub chapter. It's like, oh yeah, so she always thought that she was supposed to be a boy, so she was a boy. Or like, oh, she always felt masculine and she wasn't a real woman. This is how she describes it. She's not a real woman. And like oh yeah, we know she was a lesbian because masculine, and I don't know. It's just like it's definitely not something to be ignored. Definitely, it's relevant, but I just feel like it's very clear to me. Oh, this is what I was saying about the author having internalized lesbophobia or whatever the fuck she has. She has I don't know if it's because she is trying to like accurately portray these cultures in which she seems to only know about them having a butch femme dynamic, or if she has like internalized this and this is like what she finds like important. But she seems to really have a concept in her mind of like there are two types of lesbians. And it's almost like it really, really is reminiscent of like the female brain, male brain thing. And so, like, if you are like a lesbian who has like female brain, then as she has purported in many cultures and time periods, you're not really a lesbian. You're like a normal woman who has the potential to do some lesbian stuff. Unless you're masculine, in which case you're a lesbian. I'm like, just like really, really like lesbophobic concepts. And like, again, if you're going to editorialize, which she does, then would you not take a second to be like, oh, hey, I'm a lesbian reader, you're maybe a lesbian, like some of these concepts might be a bit concerning or something. You know what I mean? Like if you're going to editorialize, at least like exactly. VF says butches are just men replaceable boyfriends. That's bullshit. Exactly, Grey Witch. Exactly. Grey Witch says we need to normalize that a lot of lesbians break gender rules without saying that means we are a kind of man. Exactly. VF is bringing up the stone butch thing. Yeah. So she brought up stone butches. I think it was in chapter 7. And it was very brief. I thought she would do like one or two paragraphs on it because that is something that there is a body of writing to look back on, right? Um, and she didn't really talk about it much, and I was like, okay. And so she's brought it up again, but she has not brought it up to really describe what is a stone butch. She has just brought up like, oh yeah, here's many different women in many different cultures who don't like being touched, and like that's it. No, nothing further. And I'm like, well, actually, no. I think it was either one of the Thai couples or the Malaysian couples. Sorry, I need to. I don't know. Who were like the reason one of the like butches in whichever culture and place that was said the reason I don't take off my clothes is that we can ignore I'm a woman if my clothes are on. Like every single fucking thing that was quoted in here to do with lesbianism in this chapter. Well, no, okay. Most of the things quoted in this chapter to do with lesbianism were like quotes of lesbophobia, man. Like literally. Yeah. And then also like that Billy Tipton. Oh my god. Okay, have I skipped that already? No, this is the first page. Okay. This is the stuff, the mummies and babies, creepy shit. Um More creepy shit about a student watching their mother have sex. Great. This is a Malaysian thing. Mhm. Like, I'm not saying it isn't dangerous now for trans men or like, you know, trans identified females to go into the men's room or to go into the military or whatever and be like, I'm a man. Obviously, there's danger for them, right? We all are aware of this, okay? But can you imagine doing that in like the 1930s or whatever? Or I think there was some lesbian who was in the military in the 1400s at some point earlier in the book. Can you imagine doing that? Like I have met some very butch women, you know? Like, they don't need to bind their chest. They have like very deep voices, like these kind of like very masculine, like physically masculine women. And even them, I'm like, I can't imagine them just like joining the military and being like, well, like, did you have privacy? Like, I don't know. It's just very, very Jeanne d'Arc, yes. No, I know that I'm okay. The first books I ever read that got me into reading were like women undercover in the military. I know this is a thing. I'm just saying. Like From what I know of like TIFs who've been in homeless shelters, TIFs who've been in group homes, TIFs who've been like in like communal hospital settings, like being in a communal setting where you're supposed to be perceived as a man is like very, very stressful and dangerous. Oh, what happened to her? Yes, exactly. Yes, thank you, Lisa Michelle. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, okay. So that was like very, I don't know. I just was thinking about that as I was reading that. Okay. Thank you, Lisa. Okay. Oh, by the way, is it weird if I say Lisa or am I supposed to say Lisa Michelle? Oh, hey, Uta. Wow, a lot of women here. Cool women here today. Okay, cool. And the whole BT thing. I'm not there yet. We are in the India section. Oh, no, wait, we've left the India section. What section are we in? Oh, this is the Billy Tipton. This is like the Americans. This is the Oklahoma person. Um, the Southern black woman. We skipped to Sri Lanka again. What happened to the other American? But okay, one of them. Oh my god, that the wife didn't know that she was a fucking woman. How is it possible? Okay, I know that this happens because I have like seen the news reports in court cases. I know that there are women who like masquerade as men and date women and like perform sex acts on them while they're under while they're misrepresenting themselves as men, right? Obviously this happens. Um and well, I'm glad you're home safe from the ice storm, Uta. It's raining here. Uh Tostone says Jeanne d'Arc was killed because she refused to wear a dress. Well, that's the thing in here, wasn't it? In one of the cases in 1945, the here. No, it's not here. Where is it? Well, basically, I don't know. You can go back in the reading, but in the reading, um, the conclusion was that the judge ordered both of them to like become women again and like seek psychiatric treatment or something. Like, what does that mean? The masculine one needs to start wearing a dress instead of a skirt, instead of a pants. Um. Anyway, okay. Moving along. Oh yeah. Okay. So yeah, Lita. Like that's the one in the UK from the 1980s. I read about it. Oh yeah, I don't know. It's like plus 2 degrees here today. It's like I don't know what that is in US, like 34 degrees or something. Um, and yeah, okay. I can believe that you can um trick someone a couple times, especially if you're like, drunk in the dark at a bar or something. But like to the point of marrying someone, how is it possible that you marry someone you've never seen them naked? Like even more than that, from the wife's perspective, the whole thing is fucking ludicrous. Can you imagine being a heterosexual woman, okay? You're attracted to men, you've had sex with men, you know what men expect from sex. Then you have sex with this man who wants nothing, nothing. He wants to touch you and then nothing. That's it. He's done. How for years, this is the only sexual interaction you have with your husband. Wouldn't you be like, this is extremely bizarre behavior for a man who has a fucking penis or something? Like the whole thing is just yes. VF is like they don't want to admit to being a lesbian. But I know, but it's very strange to me that the author seems to be playing into it. The author doesn't say like they claimed they didn't know. She's like they didn't know. Because earlier in the book she talks about another case, like many cases of this. So basically when it was like there was never really laws against lesbianism anywhere, but they would say that it was like impersonating a husband or like impersonating a man or like immoral sexual acts or something. They would make up a reason that they was so when it became to the point of like, you're like in a medieval court and they're gonna like take out your organs or whatever the fuck they're gonna do because it's medieval times, then they suddenly would be like, "Oh, I had no idea that she wasn't. I thought she was a man." Right? And it's like this is a life or death situation. It's very understandable why you're doing this. Here in when is this Billy Tipton? Billy Tipton died in 1991. So you're telling me that like in recent history, people who knew what lesbians were probably somehow were married to one for decades without realize. It's like obviously such bullshit, but it's just very like to me. I'm criticizing the author really that earlier on she was able to say, look, this is a practical reason why they're living as a man. This is a practical reason why they claimed they didn't know their partner wasn't a woman or was a woman. And now, because it's like more recent times, it's close enough to queer theory, she can't see that anymore. It's fucking bullshit. Oh, hey, Dragon. Okay. The kids not knowing, I can kind of believe. Like, if you grew up thinking your mom was your dad, then you're not going to start thinking that you're be like looking for signs that he isn't, right? But like, I don't know. Oh fuck. There's many parts of this chapter that were like actually triggering to me, so I'm trying to not get too far into that shit. But like, so this Manel from Sri Lanka. So they're talking about her, and they're like, my family is confounded by my behavior. My sisters could not bring me into our village society as a girl because my manner of speech and behavior. The society I grew up in, the society I grew up in drew back in fear. Is this a girl? Is this a boy? So, who the fuck could understand why this person felt alienated as a woman? I I have no idea why they would be motivated to live as a man, present themselves as a man when this is how they grew up. Who could figure it out? Okay. Enough said. Then the only place in Sri Lanka that they also, let's keep in mind this book is published I think in 2008. So, I actually there's a little queer theory thing there about some FTM that I'm waiting to get into. This is published in 2009. Okay. So, um so this Tiff went to this women's support group in Sri Lanka. It's in all caps, that's the name of it. Okay. He says, she says, I only realized that homosexuality exists in Sri Lanka when I came here. Because of this, the mentality I had about hospitals, okay, whatever. Hospitals and operations I wanted was gone. I don't feel alone anymore. Okay, so two big things. First big thing, she in her mind, like as her like solution to the problem that she was so gender nonconforming, she found transition. Even though she didn't know what trans was, she didn't know about all that shit. She just presented herself masculine like a tomboy. That's kind of what they were saying, right? And then later she went out looking for help, and that's when she found like these support groups where there was like mainstreaming of trans. That seems to be the general gist of things. Imagine if she had found a lesbian support group long before any of that shit. Like literally, when the only data input that you're given is regressive heteronormative shit, you're going to internalize and then act upon the regressive heteronormative shit. So it's not a fucking surprise, right? Like it makes complete fucking sense actually. Um a friend of mine is a retired developmental psychologist. I don't know, friend, like the father of a friend of mine. Is a retired developmental psychologist. I had a conversation with him once, and he was like, a lot of the times, mental illness is a reasonable reaction to an unreasonable situation. So if your situation is that you're a woman and people are treating you like you're some kind of insane weirdo because you're not feminine enough and you behave manly, then it makes a certain amount of sense to be like, okay, I'll be a man. Then there will be no resistance to that. That problem is not there anymore. Obviously, you're creating a lot more problems. Obviously, it actually is no kind of a solution. But in your mind, it makes some kind of sense. And I'm like, if that heteronormative, regressive, toxic thought pattern was interrupted, maybe they wouldn't get to the point. You know what I'm saying? If they were given anything other than the regressive heteronormative data, they wouldn't keep outputting the results of regressive heteronormative data. Oh, hello, Cyber. Hello, Dragon. Okay. Let's keep going. Oh, yeah. Then she was investigating surgeries. When she found lesbians, she said, I don't feel alone anymore. I don't need surgery. Could it be that if she had found lesbians before, she wouldn't have even needed the trans identity in the first place. Okay. Like, to me, reading about this woman's story, basically it seems like she experienced a lot of like overt lesbophobia from a young age, and she developed this, I wouldn't even call it a gender. They don't even talk about gender. She developed this like characterization of herself that would help her better get on in the society she lived in. And then here, quote, I am not a homosexual. I don't know how to live as a homosexual. I don't understand it. I can't. Okay, why don't you understand it? Could it be because you grew up in like a really heteronormative lesbophobic culture and that you internalized that and that your only exposure to lesbianism was after you had decided that you were not a lesbian? And so you were not even open to the like thinking about, well, what does it mean to be a lesbian? Okay. I can't do women with women. Could that be because you have so much hatred for your women's body and the fact that you are a woman? That doesn't mean you're not a lesbian. Hating it. I don't understand it. I can't do women with women. I have my own unique method of sexual practice which suits the pleasures of my body. Okay, first of all, I think we can all agree. Um, there's like nothing new under the sun. I'm sure whatever the fuck she was doing in bed, that there are lesbians who do that shit. That doesn't preclude you from anything. That means nothing. Okay. I don't know. This is like most of a page. Every page of this book, in this chapter, it's just like internalized lesbophobia. This book should be retitled Sapphistries, the internalized lesbophobic global history of the world. Okay. Maybe I'll do like an essay, like a takedown essay of this book. Ah, Dragon. I know. Dragon said, sad to think I lived through the best of lesbian times and now they're only getting worse. OMG, lesbian, or not lesbian. Jesus fuck, I'm tired. Dragon. There's like a whole section of this that talks about the Lesbian Organization of Toronto in the 70s and 80s in Toronto. And like, I didn't know, I knew at some point that there was like a women's coffee house in Toronto. But according to this book, there was the Lesbian Organization of Toronto, Loot. There was a lesbian feminist newspaper and a feminist coffee house all in the same like physical location. Um Tossstone says the gay and trans community here pressured me to transition. I left the scene and have remained whole. Well, I'm glad that you're in one piece, but it's really sad that you had to isolate yourself to do that. Um I really think oh, Uta has to go. Thanks for popping in. Have a good night, Uta. Um I really think that like women, our strength comes from like supporting each other, and that it's like counter to our nature to isolate ourselves very like a lot. But I can see a lot of us doing it because it's like our only option. It's like a self preservation. Um just like I wish we could all have like one or two good lesbian friends so we're not by ourselves. Okay, let's keep moving along. So, the Sri Lankan woman with all her internalized lesbophobia, let's keep it going. Oh, San Francisco shit. Okay. Oh yeah, okay. So this is the gender shit. I'm trying to think. So what she's referring to in this book, I joined trans in 2009 and this was published in 2009. So presumably she actually wrote this in like 2007 or 2008. So what I know about like the trans community and ideology is like slightly out of mode, but it's pretty close. I also love how like listen to this phrase and I'm like, what? The transgender movement in the United States makes clear how complicated the relationship can be between gender identities, whether one perceives oneself as male or female. Okay, first of all, that's transphobic. She's obviously a TERF now. And sexual identities, whether one identifies as homosexual, bisexual, or heterosexual. Oh my god. And then later in the chapter, okay, I can't believe. I can't believe. Okay, so this is supposed to be a book about lesbianism, and she even at the beginning of the chat of the book, and I think at some point in this chapter said like a history of like love between women or female bodied people. because she understands that trans men are like, if they're having sex with women, then they're either bi or lesbian, right? Um, at some point in this chapter, oh fuck, I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, at some point in this chapter, she says something about like this person perceives their sexuality only in terms of like going outwards, not like in relation to the person they're attracted to. Something bizarre like that. And I was like, do you know what like the definition of a sexual orientation is? It's relational. It's not only about you, it's about you and your potential partners. It's relational between 2 points, it's not only about one person. It's just how can you write a book about lesbianism and then like support a concept that like voids the entire conception of sexual orientation. Okay, whatever. Dragon says, yeah, about the stuff in Toronto. Yeah, there was a place turned into a membership to keep men out. They charge like $1 to be a member. Yeah, that makes sense. That's what I've heard. Women who are wanting to start like clubs and events and stuff like that kind of stuff now. They're saying they need to make it members only coffee house. Yeah. Unavimea. What is your freaking name, man? Like it's like Latino, right? Where the double L is like a yeah sound. Like what is that? But she says, yeah, totally agree on the isolation thing. Dragon says Parliament Street was where the lesbians went to get away from the women hating gay guys. Dragon says I resent Buck's presence in Toronto. Fuckwad, keep your crappy porn to yourself in the Castro. um happily retired Uta said, what I love best about you is that you told me I don't need to change my orientation. You don't accept Nettie. I don't have to pressure my feelings and become something else. I am so thankful, Uta. Oh, it's Catalan. I've been to Catalonia. Lluna Vermella means red moon in Catalan. It's blood moon on Getter now, by the way. OMG. I watched a Catalan soap opera because I only remember, what was the name of the soap opera? I don't remember, but it was clearly for teenagers because it was like about a high school. It was basically like Degrassi, but it was like a soap opera. Um, it was all teenagers like in high school, and I just remember the name. There's like, okay, for those of you who don't know, there's people on YouTube who like all they do is they will watch like Days of Our Lives. And so like one of the characters came out as gay in like I don't know, like 2013 or something. And then after that he had like many boyfriends because it's a soap opera and that's like the whole fucking point of soap operas, right? And so there's people who will like cut every single like moment of that guy's life out of the show and put it on YouTube so you can kind of watch like a gay TV show that's just about this guy. Anyway, I did that with this Catalan soap opera and just watched like Fair and David. And like, oh my god, it was so heartbreaking because so they're like in high school. One of them is clearly gay, and the other one is like not. And he comes to terms with they get together, whatever. And then it's like the show takes place over like a period of 4 years or something. Like they graduated high school, like they have like good jobs, like they're moving in together and whatever. And like one of them like proposes to the other one. While they're proposing, they get shot and die. I was like, what? Anyway, okay, enough about this soap opera. Okay. Okay. Like this okay, even I mean, we just talked I can't get over this, okay? I have my own unique method of sexual practice which suits the pleasures of my body. Like the othering of herself. Like she's literally saying what I do is so freaky and bizarre. I can't imagine any other woman does this. It's a unique strangeness for me. Um like the fact that she has been othered so much that she now internally others herself to like such a huge degree is like I think we're used to it now. We're totally used to it now, but like we shouldn't be used to it. It's fucking shocking. No, it is not Iago and Max, but I know who they are. They're more recent. Lita's like it's called lesbianism, sis. Lisa says it's shocking. Yeah, like it's really fucking shocking. Like I think that it would almost be amazing to read somebody this chapter of this book and then explain to them what a trans man is. And be like, do you see the context? How this is not some neutral nothingness? Like I have maintained for years, and this I am not the first woman to say this, that the concept of transgenderism is the pathologizing of lesbianism. Okay, so like in this book, historically what she recognizes as lesbian a lot of the time is like the first indicator that she looks at is gender nonconformity because that is more accessible than actual data about who's having sex with who, right? Especially before the time that women were like taught to read and write, which is most of the book. Um, and then she will like, oh fuck, what the fuck was I just saying? What was I saying? What was I saying? It's gonna become a thing. It was connected to another thing. Oh god, fuck, I'm too tired for this now. Because I've been awake since like I woke up at 4:10 this morning. It's 8 p.m. right now. I did my 2 jobs today, but I was like, I'm gonna fucking finish this reading because this is chapter 9 and then there's chapter 10 and then I'm fucking done with this book. And then I can start something that's like actually fulfilling and nice. Pathologizing of lesbians. Thank you so much, Lisa Michelle. Okay, so I have maintained for years that the entire concept of gender dysphoria, gender identity disorder, when applied to women, because women and men are radically different, is literally just a pathologizing of lesbophobia. What this author uses as a primary indicator of lesbianism, because she doesn't have that many records about like the actual sex acts between women, is their behavior and gender nonconformity. If you read this book and you know about it's like never before in my life has it been more like glaring, like flashing neon lights of like this is like the pathology, like lesbians in this chapter, they're basically men light. What is a butch? It's man light. What is a tom? It's man light. What is a tb? It's man light. Everything man light, man light. The women who are with them, oh, they're not lesbians, they're into men, except these women who are basically men, oh, they're just men, blah 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 blah. It's like never before has it been more apparent to me that like this is the lesbianism that they pathologized. Do you want to see what it is that they took and then they wrote a guideline of what it is? You read this chapter of this book. This is what they took. This is the original like behavior or characteristic and attitude, the attitude that would accompany this the observation of these behaviors and characteristics. And then they turned around and said, "Okay, just make them into real men. Problem solved for society." Like it's really Lita says it's really offensive. It's really really fucking offensive. I completely agree. Dragon says, "Who is the man in the relationship?" So in the last like 2 or 3 chapters, she talks about like Seme and Uke and like Onabe and everything. Everything is heteronormative. Everything is a reference to like even I think it was in the last chapter where she talked about the Chinese and the Japanese different like I don't know, like cultures of lesbianism, I guess. And like she literally talks about like who is giving sexual pleasure and who's receiving it, and that's it. Um and like from reading this book, it sounds like she is saying, and like I'm sure this is not what she's trying to say, but like it's done so in such a poor way. It basically sounds like she's saying if you go to Thailand, all of the lesbians, except for this tiny group who call themselves the lesbies or the leses or whatever, all of them are like Stone Butch or Pillow Princess, and that's it. That's the whole country. That's all the lesbians. It's just like very fucking disturbing. Dragon says, why can't it ever be who are the 2 women in the relationship? Well, that too. Okay, so for those of you who were here in my discussion of chapter 8, remember how so in chapter 8 she talked about kind of like after the industrialization and women were educated, how they had like resources to create their own spaces with each other, and how like even just educational settings and like prisons and stuff like that, they had spaces that were sex segregated where they were like stuck in there together. So, um, I don't know, new places to find each other. That was kind of like the theme of the last chapter. And I was very surprised because it went, I think, until was the timeline of the last chapter, but it passed. I think it was till the 1980s. Yeah, the last chapter was called In Public and it stopped in the 1980s. And I was very surprised. At no point did she mention the 60s or the 70s, like lesbian feminist communes, because I was like, there's a place where there's definitely a lot of lesbian sex happening and women finding each other and women being around each other. She didn't mention it. Here in this book, there's 4 pages. I think there's 4 pages talking about lesbian feminism. So I will say, for most of you who weren't here in earlier on in the book, she does pay quite a bit of homage in the first 2 chapters to second wave feminists. She quotes, there's quite a few different books about like a lesbian utopia or like an imagining of like a lesbian, like origins of the human species being lesbian and stuff like that, that are by second wavers. She quotes them, she talks about them. She mentions Sheila Jeffreys. She mentions Andrea Dworkin. She's not unaware. She's definitely not one of those types of academics who's like unaware. But like when she finally brought up the lesbian feminism, a place where you could definitely actually be like she could have. If the problem with a lot of this stuff is they don't have written record of this stuff happening, right? Lesbian feminism is definitely a place where you will have letters, you will have journals, you will have people who are still alive now who were there when those lesbians were together doing their shit for 30 years. Do you know what I mean? It's just very bizarre that a place where there's like a lot of real like lesbians. She talks about how like their relationship is important to each other and it's like their sameness that connects them and blah blah blah. And it's like, and you couldn't give us like a fucking one line of a love letter, one quote from an interview of one lesbian, what she thinks about her other lesbian partner when it comes to lesbian feminism. Um, oh, Polar Knight says we are not cut into cookie cutter gender roles slash expressions. Geez, what a weird chapter. Well, that's the thing too. It's like she's trying to do this thing where she talks about how gender relates to sexual orientation, which again, we all agree there is like a trend that is observable, but and significant historically, obviously. But like she really does seem to think that there's like female brained and male brained, or like pink brain and blue brained lesbians, and that they're like 2 different breeds, and that these 2 breeds are observable in every society or something. Like it's very, instead of being like in every society, the early conceptions of lesbianism were like a mirror of heterosexuality because that's what they had to draw upon. Instead of that kind of an attitude about it, she's like, yep, obviously that's the way it is. And I'm like, what? It's very bizarre. Anyway, okay. Um, and like I said, it's like she editorializes in other places. So it's like either you editorialize or you don't. If you do, then I'm assuming the rest of this is just what your opinion is and what your this is a reflection of your tone and not a reflection of what you like the facts you're trying to give to us. Um, VF says I used to cry not because I hated the dresses, but because they meant I couldn't play in the mud. It was limiting me. But looking back, I like that my grandmother sewed them for me. That was sweet. Oh my god, that's so cool. Like my oma used to well, she just died, but she crocheted me a lot of blankets. They're downstairs. If I had one in my room, I would show you. Um and like my dad when I was little would sew me like outfits and clothes and stuff. I think that's so like special. That's a really cool thing. Anyway, okay. Let's keep moving. Remember I was like it's going to be 30 minutes, 44 minutes in. Okay. Oh my god, this paragraph pissed me off so much. I know we already talked about Billy. I just need to read this paragraph again because it pissed me off so much. Are you ready? Okay. What is striking about Billy's story is the gradual move into manhood, the fact that in some sense he led a double life. Keeping contact with those who knew um, that he had a female body and that he apparently considered going back into womanhood with blah 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 blah. Okay. Was he transgender in the modern sense? a butch lesbian who found this was the best way to be in the world, or something else altogether? It is tantalizing that we will never really know. Is it? Is it tantalizing we will what in the fuck does that mean? Like, this entire book, as a lesbian, I read it and I am like sad for these women. I'm grieving for these women who feel their only way to be comfortable and survive. Like, it's one thing if you make like a tactical decision that like it will be more like you'll be able to accomplish whatever your goals are better if you live as a man. But also I think it's to recognize like they're doing that because of female oppression. So they're being forced into this position. Like, if I want to be able to do this thing, I need to look like a man, be seen as like this Billy was trying to be a jazz musician, wasn't getting anywhere, wore a men's outfit, seemed to be getting somewhere. Which also, like, as a musician, there is so much data about that. Anyway, like sexism in music, we have data about it like up until like the 2000s that it's like a very very real tangible thing, and this is like in a post-feminist world now. Okay, anyway, um but it's like this is like a prison. This woman was in the prison of masquerading as a man until the day she died. Why? Because she was trying to get into fucking jazz music. That's why. Like, this is not something to be like venerated or like glorified or like praised or just like speculate like, oh, who's to know, it's so interesting. Like, it's actually not interesting. It's fucking depressing and sad and disturbing. Okay, that's Sri Lanka. I don't know how I got back to this page. Oh, this Bay Area shit. Okay, so okay, this section about Oscar from the Bay Area, a gay identified trans man. So this is the typical Fujiyoshi tiff, right? Like a female who says that they're a gay man. So the first thing that this person says, oh no, that's a different person after. Okay, so the major thing that this person has to say is that you don't need to erase your femaleness to be trans. Like, which is so weird because okay, so when I first heard about trans and stuff, the goal when you transitioned was to go stealth. So your entire transition would be pointless if you went to work and put a picture of like your 8th grade graduation or whatever the fuck on your table and it was like clearly a girl, right? Then what the fuck was the point of transitioning? Okay. That was their perspective on things. Now, this person, which I assume this book was written in 2007, 2008, is saying, oh, we're past that now. We can acknowledge that, like, not everyone wants to be a man or a woman. And I'm just going to read the thing. So glad to have that behind us now. Change the birth certificate, burn the photos, make up lies about what you were in the Boy Scouts, don't talk about it, don't show anybody the pictures. I'm very grateful that in the last few years, a number of people have really seriously challenged all of the above, that you don't need to necessarily identify as a man. So this is partially to do with non-binary bullshit, and this is partially to do with ideology. So originally the ideology was always there, but it's obviously changed a lot over the last like 4 decades, right? So or 5 decades really. It's really started taking off in the 70s. But so the goal was to be stealth. You wouldn't want to be known as trans. Then it became more like acceptable to be trans, in which case this is why like I don't really make this argument anymore because nobody fucking on that side listens to me, but it's really, really transphobic in like their understanding of the word transphobic to for some reason insist that all of the experiences that a trans person has fits into the experience of a cis person. Like if you're saying that these people face like a unique oppression and have unique experiences and like they're very special and they need their own resources and their own groups and blah 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 blah, then why do you have to pretend that everything about them makes them identical to a cis person? Like that's actually transphobic, which is this is what she's referring to here. This person is saying, look, we could be proud that we're trans. We could say we could claim our history and our present at the same time without having to like hide the fact that we're trans. And now we seems like this was a very short period in time that this was true. Like less than 3 or 4 years in my opinion. Because now we've gone back to the other side where did you guys see that thing? I don't remember what it's called. Probably one of you will remember. There is some kind of service now where you can send them your baby photos and they will like Photoshop and regender them. So instead of it being like a baby girl that your mom is holding when you're like 1 years old at your birthday, they will like Photoshop it and change it to look like a baby boy. So clearly, what is being pointed out in this book is out of date already. Okay. No, I know transphobic is basically a meaningless word, but I mean it's like hypocrisy in their own concept of things. It's hypocrisy. That's my point. Okay. Um I try not to use words that mean nothing, but I just meant like when I'm referring to what they think, I'll use their words. Okay. Um you guys don't know about this? I saw it advertised like in Facebook advertisements. Why did I have like one piece of hair that's like flipping that way? Whatever. Okay, let's keep moving. Person in Chile. Oh my god, this person in Chile. Um yes. Tossstone says that is so mother hating. Yes. Lisa says that she's seen the photo thing and it's nuts. It's literally historical revisionism. It feels like 19 or no. It feels like it gives me like very like Fahrenheit 451 vibes. Um anyway. Okay, let me read you the quote from this fag in Chile. So it's like clearly this is a tiff, yeah? I mean the whole book is about females, so at least that's turfy. The book is consistently about females. There has not been any lesbians with a penis, although there's still chapter 10 left, so who knows what the fuck is in there. Um Okay, so this is this Charlie who's an FTM in the Bay Area. Quote, "It doesn't work for me to be sexual with a straight identified man. So this person is not attracted to male-bodied people." No, no, no. Okay, I'm going to shut up. Ignore that I said that. Let's keep moving. "It does work being with a woman or an FTM. Yeah, this person is not attracted to male-identified people or to male-bodied people because I can relate to women as a man and FTMs as a fag." Again, it's the othering of the self. So this person, so it's on testosterone, no surgery. So this is a female who is on testosterone who wants to masculinize. Um, it just says queer identified. So okay, again, I don't even know. There's like so many things. Okay, I'm not going to start defending gay men. This is not about them. They can defend themselves. But let's think about this for a second. So this person is an FTM. They can't have sex with straight men. Why? Because they identify as in some gray area of womanness, somewhere in between the womanness and the manness. And for a woman to be with a man, that's heterosexual, and they're in the queer, womanly, manly position. So that's not good. Obviously, though, they're actually not attracted to men. Okay, so this is a lesbian, which I assume is why it's in this book, because even though the author buys into queer theory, she still knows what the fuck a lesbian is consistently. So thank God for small blessings, I guess. Although really all that means is that we're exposed to more internalized lesbophobia, which is disturbing. Um they can relate to a woman as a man. So when you are with someone who is the same as you, that is when you feel the most different from them. What is that based on? It's it's very, very convoluted and I think expresses like deep self-hatred, okay? And when you are with an FTM, a female who wants to be perceived as a man, because I relate to FTMs as a fag. So, in terms of being some weirdo freak, basically, is what she's really saying. And it's like you're othering yourself and you're saying you feel similar to women who radically other themselves, and you feel dissimilar from women who accept themselves. Like you're just telling me that you hate the fact that you're a female, you hate the fact that you're a woman. That's all you're telling me. It's not proof about anything. It's just proof, like it's just evidence that you hate yourself. Okay. Yeah, I just felt like I had to comment on that. Okay. Okay. Here's where we get into I'm not going to probably go into this because there's like 6 pages where it's like okay, here we have the tie. Does it start with tie? Yeah. It's all of these different types of butches and femmes and crap. The teas and the pose in Taiwan. The the TBs, as aka tomboys and tomboys girls. It's actually interesting to me. I didn't realize how like I know what a tomboy is, obviously, and I obviously know there's a lot of lesbians who are tomboys, but I didn't realize that like I also know that globally the word Tommy, like historically, has had like a lesbian connotation to it, but I didn't realize that like there's parts of the world where the word tomboy literally means like butch lesbian. I didn't realize it like directly related to lesbian that much. Yeah, Dragon. Dragon says I never got fagged more than when I was tuned out. I never even took tea. I've only ever been called a dyke on the street once, like in a derogatory way. Every other time that somebody has said something to me, like out in public, it's been fag. Like when I was trying to pass as a man. Um, VF says I got called that all the time just for being butch. Yeah, I think it's like a very common experience of masculine lesbians. J. Marie says, does anyone have links for info about young girls with Ehlers downloads having hysterectomies, the health consequences? Okay. I am sorry, Dragon. Um, yeah. Okay, let's keep going. So there's like the Chinese, or no, the Taiwanese, the Hong Kong, the Filipino, the Thai, the Malaysian, the Curacao, the Japanese. It's like, fuck. How many butch femme? Like, basically, she's telling us that there is a concept of butch femme that, like, as far as she's describing it, is like a cookie cutter or like a mirror image of heterosexuality. No, no, no. Okay. Enough with that shit. Wait, VF, you probably speak Spanish, right? Did you say you're Cuban? Yeah. Well, even the concept of dead naming, though, like, if dead naming is a thing, then that means like it's essential for you to deny your past self. So I can like read Spanish and I can understand 70% of Spanish. I cannot converse in Spanish at this point in my life anymore. And I'm not going to try. Okay. I just find Spanish interesting. If you want to comment in Spanish, I can try reading out the comment and replying in English. Okay. Um okay, so here we have the section finally about second wave feminism and lesbian feminism. Russian Polish on your father's side, so very white Cuban. I thought you were gonna telling me that you prefer to speak in Russian or Polish. I was like, fuck, how many languages do you speak? Yeah, my dad's family speaks like Russian, Ukrainian, among other languages. Like they only speak those languages because they lived in those countries, not because those are their nationalities. Anyway, whatever. Okay. So, well, they lived in USSR, so they got whatever. Okay. Um like I said, I feel like I need to like sit down and do like a proper, especially of this. So let's see. Okay, she complains at the beginning of this that a big limiting factor is what is recorded in history. That there is not much recorded in history. Like I was saying before, you know where there's a lot of recorded history? Lesbian feminism, because all of them were fucking producing content, like magazines, zines, newsletters, journals, fucking everything. So much content was produced during that time. It was like the heyday of lesbian um content creation. And she spent one, two, one, two, three. She basically spent 3 pages on it, which to me is like mind-boggling. Okay. I don't speak Russian or Polish or anything. But like I have a pretty good like mouth for pronouncing sounds. So like if I hear like my family speaking Russian or something, I can like repeat it back to them. Okay. Um So I'm not gonna do like a whole analysis of like everything. I'm just gonna try and do like a kind of quick and dirty thing. So who the fuck is ringing the doorbell? I think it's just my roommate. Okay. Um, the fact that she mentions political lesbians, I'm obviously okay with because that is undeniably associated with lesbian history. They had a lot of output, political lesbians. So even a bunch of them went back to being straight or being with men or whatever. There's undeniably a lot of lesbian content or history that is associated with them. Um, what I did find strange was okay, so I think there's two different definitions of compulsory or political lesbian here, or just the one. But the women who did not want to have sex with women but identified with the lesbian feminist community came to be known as political lesbians, described by an English group called the Leeds Revolutionary Feminists. Was Sheila Jeffreys in that? I feel, isn't she from Leeds? Um, as quote, a woman identified woman who does not fuck men, it does not mean compulsory sexual activity with men, end quote. So there's certain corners of radfem Tumblr where political celibacy is a thing. Um, I very briefly was like, I'm politically celibate, except for the fact that I actually have like no interest in having sex and was too scared to go and have sex. But I found that interesting, uh, and to be a certain kind of empowering choice for a woman. Um, but again, okay, there is so much of this book where it's like, yep, so there was one lesbian, and then there was her friend who was straight, and so the lesbian like serviced the straight friend until she was like, "Oh no, I'm good now. Like I'm married, so it's good. Like you can go away." There's so many points in this book where it's very clear that there are like straight women using lesbians for sex. But when it comes to political lesbians, she doesn't actually go into the concept that there could be like straight women engaging in homosexual sexual activity. Like it's very bizarre to me that throughout the entire book she leaves like there's so much speculation, there's so much like we don't know their orientation or like how they felt about it, but like this is what we do. Like there's so much of that in this book, and then at this point she doesn't mention it. What like that's the only thing that she mentions is well, you could just be not having sex with men. Oh, thanks so much, Lisa Michelle. Yeah, I hope you can come back too. Um, I usually generally schedule them ahead of time, even if it's like a day ahead of time. But just turn on your notification. Okay. Um, and hopefully I'll start a new book soon. Well, not hopefully. I'm gonna start a new book soon. So hopefully that'll be well. I know that'll be better than this because I'm purposely choosing something second wave next. Um, okay. So yes. Um, so yeah, her description of political lesbian. I mean, I'm not saying it's not one of the definitions of political lesbian. But I just mean like of all the definitions, it seems like the most like the one that's the least associated with the topic of the book. So that's all I'm trying to say. I didn't communicate that very well. Okay. Um. Oh yeah, like this thing. When this Barb Herman had her first sexual experience with another girl, what she felt was a mixture of fear and exhilaration. Like feels sis. Okay. And then this quote, I always knew I was a lesbian, but I distanced myself from that world. It was too scary to consider, end quote. That is in a certain way how I felt. There was one time, the only I think actual lesbian I ever met before I became a rad femme. I was at this like youth group thing. It wasn't even in Toronto, it was in Scarborough, which I guess is like technically Toronto, but like not really. Um and we were filming some kind of a film for some like queer resource thing. And I was an FTM obviously. I think I was 15 and the girl was 14 and she like asked me out And I immediately was like, "No, no, no, like, I'm not a lesbian, like, I'm not into like, I'm not a woman, but also, like, I'm not into women, so, like, no." And I think that might be the only time in my entire teenage years that there was, like, a slimmer of, like, light that was like, "Maybe you could be," and I was like, "Nope, never mind." Like, it was literally too scary to let my mind even go there. And it's like somehow after that, it was like there was like a door that had been like permanently shut that I was like, "Nope, so we've ruled that out. Don't never need to think about that again." Um, yes. Okay, Dragon says, but at least she was brave to ask you out. That is the thing that I look back on, and I'm actually like, I didn't like reject her. Like, I wasn't, I think if I was anything, I was just kind of like anxious and panicky, really. I think that was quite obvious. Um, I wasn't rude to her or anything, but I kind of wish that I would have been like, you know what, like, I'm 25 and I've never asked anybody out in my entire life. Well, because I was already dating someone and be like, let's go on a date. But like, like I never like just yes, that was very brave of her. um, but Dragon, why don't you just make a getter? Like most of the women in my DMs are on getter. Um, okay, let's keep moving along. Oh yeah, it was like the Messiah had come. These were my people, the people like me. They were lesbians. I went to like a lesbian music festival in 2017. Well, not lesbian. I went to a women's land, a women's only festival in 2017. And literally, I was wearing cargo shorts, Birkenstocks. I had hairy legs that I hadn't shaved since I was like 16. So that was like 6 years of growth on my legs. Um, I was wearing tank top. Um, oh, this was also, I think, when I was still vegan. I had a buzzed head and I had my armpit hair. And I remember like you had to volunteer for like 2 work shifts at the festival. And so I was like when I got there, I didn't know anyone. I went by myself. And I was like, okay, so then I'm gonna volunteer for my work shifts today, and then hopefully through that I'll meet some women. And I remember like directing the women like where to park and like where the different types of campsites are. And like I have this one specific memory of this family that it was like these 2 moms and they had like 3 little kids and like 2 girls and a boy, and the boy was like really little, like 3 or something. And they each had like a little wagon, and in the like the kids, and in the wagon was like their sleeping bag and like the little like cooler like snacks and stuff. And like these moms, and the moms were dressed identical to me. Both of the moms, they were like cargo pants, tank top, armpit hair, buzzed head, Birkenstocks. And they were like, "Oh, like how long have you been standing here?" Like everybody also was calling me sister, and I was like, "Whoa," because I was like so isolated since I had detransitioned. I lived in the middle of fucking nowhere. Um, and I just remember being like, "Oh my god, they're my sister. They're my sister. This is they're my people. Like I'm not alone. These are the people like me. I don't need to explain to them who I am, how I feel. They're not going to question me. Why are you wearing clothes from the men's section? Why don't you shave your legs? What? I don't need to explain any of this stuff to them because they're like me. They know." Um, like this like internal sense of relief. Um, so when like I very relate to that. VF says, "What a Kodak moment." Like for real, it's like stuck in my head. And then these other 2 lesbians are like older, like in their 60s or 70s, like white haired, right? Also with the Birkenstocks and the cargo shorts. And they were like, "How long have you been standing here, sister?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know, not long, like an hour or something." And they were like, "Oh, like, are you hungry? Do you need here have like a juice box and like this thing of like trail mix or whatever?" And like, "Oh, we're gonna come and check on you in a bit. And if nobody's talked to you, like, we're gonna like we'll have dinner together or something." Like I don't know. Anyway, my point is, I was just like, "My women, these are my people," and I was like, it was like such, it was like a really like emotionally relieving thing. Um, yeah. Like the day after I left, I cried a lot because I finally was like, it was like I was processing like the emotional significance of my experience. Dragon says, "My first pride when I was 19, and there were 10,000 people there, and I thought I found my peeps, and now it's like a million, and I'm not interested at all because it's just corporate, no politics." Yes. Um, but Dragon, I was thinking, maybe, so I was thinking, You know, there was like a renegade dyke pride, a dyke march in 2019. I don't know if you're aware of it, but it was like indie. It was organized by like a handful of random lesbians, and then the marketing was put out like 3 days before, and it was literally just like dyke march, this time, this place. That's it. Um, and it went really well. The turnout wasn't super huge. Obviously, we couldn't keep the Queerios away, but I was thinking maybe we can do like a rad femme dyke picnic, like in Toronto in the summer, not during Pride Month or something. Like something can be done publicly in some way. There must be. We just need to be careful and think ahead about how we do it. Okay. Anyway, I did like, honestly, like clearly she knows about second wave. So she talked about like women who found their feminism through their lesbianism, women who found their lesbianism through their feminism, and then women who it seemed to be like a kind of combination of both. I thought that was interesting. So she seemed to have some kind of idea in mind of like the bases she need to cover, but that seemed to be like sufficient for her. And like again, I'm not saying this because like ideologically I am a rad femme. Because obviously I can go and find some, like Sheila Jeffries has that lesbian history book out now. There's lesbian history books that are rad femme. They're just like I was saying, they're more contemporary, and I wanted this just supposed to start like 40,000 BCE. So I was like, this is gonna give me like a more well-rounded global perspective, but whatever. Um, my point is just that there's so much written about it. It's kind of criminal how little of it is in this book. Okay. Um, I also found, okay, I don't understand why she's so obsessed with fashion. Like I said, it's worth mentioning. Is it worth centering? No, I don't think so. Um, I guess it's because it's in this chapter. So the whole fucking chapter is about Butch Femme, basically. And then you're from Miami. I thought you were from Orlando. No, whatever. Okay. Um, so then she felt the need to explain how like the rad femmes were like against femininity, but also she said they're against masculinity. And I'm like, what does masculinity mean in this context? Because like she's making it sound like the women needed to be in this like perfect central neutral space. And like I have seen video and photos of like women's collectives and like women working on building Mishfest and stuff. And there's like a variety of like within feminine and masculine, but they're all just wearing very plain clothes. They're not like um dressing to impress men. Like I just don't understand what she means in this subsection about the second waivers, how they're against masculinity. Um anyway. Oh my god, Dragon, do you go to Caravana? My neighbor when I was a little kid, she makes like a bunch of the costumes for Caravana, or at least like that was her year-round job, was making Caravana costumes. Okay. So it talks about loot in Toronto, which is cool. So let's see this section here. And like, okay, not to be like nitpicky. Yes, exactly. Yuna Vermaya says, I think against masculinity in men as gender. Yeah, but she seems to be like, the way that she talked about it in this chapter seemed to be talking about like fashion, as in like the butch femme concept that was just posited in the subchapter before this, that radical feminists wouldn't support that because it has like an aspect of masculinity to it. That's how she presents it. And I'm like, you're like equating radical feminist analysis of men's masculinity as like a toxic masculinity with like females who are unfeminine as being like a problem. It was just like very, I don't know if that was her intention, but that's definitely how it came across to me. Um Anyway, okay, so there's this whole section where this woman is like, I can't wear my makeup and I can't wear my polyester. And I'm like, okay. So she feels like it's limiting, right? But like two things. First of all, why? Why? In radical feminism, we always ask why. Why do you feel like you're at a like it's a loss to not be able to wear your makeup? Why do you feel that? Is it your conditioning? Is it your self-esteem, your self-perception? Like why do you feel that way? And then your actions based on that feeling. Do they help women or hinder women as a whole, right? So this is just this one woman and her personal perception about things. It's like again, I'm not expecting her to be a rad femme, but considering how deep she went into some other stuff earlier in the book, it seems like really, really like crazy that she didn't. This was what she chose to talk about. And then she talks about it being a uniform, and like, okay, yeah, VF says, "Who cares? That's not part of yourself." Exactly. Um, my and the uniform thing. It's like, okay, uniforms kind of have like two purposes. One, so that you all look like you're like doing the same thing together, like you are one group, which when she's talking about like for example the lesbian organization of Toronto, it's literally like a political organization for political reasons. So like maybe the uniform has like a it's like a political social aspect to it. Like it's not just arbitrary. Um and then the other purpose of uniforms, which I know like from my high school, for me, one of the primary reasons that I thought uniforms were good was that it erased class. Um, because I went to like this very bizarre high school where it was like really hard to get in and it was like very unique, and because it was unique, they couldn't limit it by region. Anyway, at the end of the day, we had like some really, really rich kids from the suburbs who like had their own cars when they were 16. And then we had kids who like there was like a fund at the school that you could like apply to and then they would like buy your uniforms for the year. Like that's the economic disparity from my high school. And within that, we basically were like almost unaware of it because of like um school uniforms. Not like unaware, but like it really limited it. Anyway, um I don't know. I'm just saying. Okay. Dragon. I mean, I know this is like you're not that old. This is from the 1970s. The Other Woman, a lesbian feminist paper published in Toronto in the 1970s. I'd never heard of it before. Maybe Feminism has heard of it. She seems to have done a lot of research about Canadian stuff. Um, I don't have any lesbian friends that old. Yeah. I really want to find some of the women who were in Loot or who ran the coffee house or whatever and like interview them, because it's like if I don't do that and get it on camera now, like who's going to get that stuff documented? Um the only I know 3 different women who were involved in organizing the Pussy Palace, which was the lesbian bathhouse. And it's like, okay, I can interview them about, running the lesbian bathhouse. But like really, I am not super concerned with that. Like, anyway, okay. Um I agree with this statement. I liked this statement a lot. Um VF says sounds fun. VF would I'm kind of not sure. Like as a radical feminist, I mean, I don't know. From the way I understand lesbian bathhouses work, it's like not at all it's like the opposite of the way again men's like it's okay. I'll just quickly tell you what my friends told me because I don't think they really exist anymore. So it's not like you can go and find out yourself. But literally they were like in the public area, all of the women were like entirely clothed, or like maybe they took off their shirt and they were still wearing a bra or something. Like there was no like nudity. And they were like there needed to be like music and conversation, or they would all just like stand there in a corners awkwardly. Oh my god, Dragon. So I'm gonna interview like 2 of my friends and then you all at the same time about the bathhouse, and then it'll turn out that you've all hooked up with each other. But anyway, it's like it's not like the I don't know. I don't know. Just I want to like talk more about like second wave lesbian organizing, and I don't feel like I have access to that history as much in Canada. I liked this quote here. Loving um, so from the lesbian feminist newspaper The Other Woman, in Toronto in the 1970s, instructed readers that, quote, loving woman is a gentle, sensual thing, and it's not something confined to genitals. It involves the whole self. Women knows best the desires, pace, and mood of other women, and is best able to satisfy her. Very fucking much agree. um, we're trying to forge relationships that aren't based on power but on mutual love and nurturing. Men are conditioned to take emotionally, but women are conditioned to give. That sentence particularly. Okay, so for those of you who've watched my video about like how a gay or how a lesbian can think she's a gay trans man or whatever, um, I talk about that I wanted to be in a relationship that was like based on like an equal footing, and that I knew that like if I was a woman and um if the partner was a man, that was not equal. And I was like, well, I'm gonna be with a man, so if I'm a man, then it's equal. And here, like that men are conditioned to take emotionally, but women are conditioned to give. I thought that the way for me to have power was for me to be taking as much as the man took, to be asking as much from him as he asked from me. And it's like I actually prefer it the other way, where I'm taking care of someone who's taking care of me instead of both of us being demanding from each other. I don't know. It's kind of like an abstract thing. It just made me think of that. Okay. Um I do like the way she summarizes this section. She says, "But what is important about the sexual ideology of lesbian feminism from a long historical perspective is the denial of the centrality of difference to sexual interactions." So, instead of it being about, "Oh, this woman is the giver, this woman is the taker, this woman is the masculine, this woman is the femme, this woman is the husband, this woman is the man," it's about them both being similar. I agree. I like that. It is different than the rest of the fucking book up to this point. Um the centrality of difference to sexual interactions, and the eroticization of intimacy with quote unquote someone just like me, even if that was more of an ideal than a reality. I don't think it's an ideal though. I think it's actually reality. Like, I don't know. Like you talk to some of these queer women who've dated all of these genders and all of these like blah 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 woke crap for like a decade, and then they went and settled down with a normal fucking lesbian, and they're like, "Oh, this is like based on something. This is like tangible. This is like an actual like real thing." And all that shit was based on like these ideas in our heads and like these pressures we felt and like these things we were trying to like present ourselves as and all this crap. And it's like, yeah. Oh yeah, Dragon, you mentioned this. Oh, yeah. Okay, Dragon, we definitely have lots of mutual friends. Or like third person mutual friends. Um, worse than Stonewall, is that possible? Yes. I highly encourage all of you to go to Egal Canada's website and look at it yourself. Dragon says it's worse. It's basically the Stonewall of Canada, and she says it's worse, and I would say probably it's worse because I think they're much more insidious and nefarious. They have like a lot they have like the same reputation and power as Stonewall, but like the general public in Canada has like no fucking clue who they are really. Like the people who know who they are work at like gay community centers or something. Um and they have like tons of funding. Like they basically are Stonewall, but they're like way more under the radar than Stonewall is. Okay. I also don't like how like so ugh, like I lost respect for this author. I think it was in chapter 3 She's talking about these like societies that have like third and fourth and fifth genders, and so she's talking about some indigenous tribe that I think is from the U.S. because I don't think I recognize their name from somewhere in Canada. Um, and how they had these like alternate genders and whatever. And so there was this one woman who was like the third gender because she was like masculine and she was like a hunter type, like she did the men's role in society. And so because of that, she was allowed to like have her own tent and like keep a wife or whatever. Um, and that there wasn't really like formal marriages anyway. There was just kind of like partnerships and you like live together and like work together or whatever. And so the woman took this woman as her wife and the woman lived with her, and but they were like taunted and harassed by the men of the village so much that eventually the wife, like the woman who was like taken as a wife, left the like masculine one to go and be with one of the actual specific men who had been harassing them to kind of like prove that she was normal or something. And the author points at this and is like, see, look, non-Western, non-Christian societies accepted non like gender nonconformity. And I was like, this woman was harassed out of her relationship. That is not proof of acceptance. There was also another one, a different story from a different indigenous um, tribe in North America. And this I'm pretty sure that she was raped by the men of the tribe because they were trying to like fix her from being like a freak or something. And she keeps throughout the chapter, she keeps coming back to the concept of like, yes, the Christian Western people who didn't have concepts of third and fourth and fifth genders, they were the bad ones. The people who had the concept of third and fourth and fifth gender, they were the good ones. They were accepting. And I'm like, you literally just told us how they were harassed out of a relationship, and then in another situation, one of them were raped. That's what acceptance looks like to you. Um, and so in this chapter, what I found is that or not even in this chapter, in the last 3 chapters maybe, there will be instances where it's like, see, the school teachers lived together, and so they had like access to each other, so they dated each other, and like even though nobody mentioned it and it wasn't acceptable, the fact that they weren't being beaten in the streets meant that society was kind of okay with it. Like the way that she presents it as like, look, this is proof that this was how like the society knew about it and they were okay with it, and like this was an okay thing. And I'm like, based on what? Literally based on what? Like the fact that nobody is being beaten to death is basically proof that everything is hanky panky, like everything is hunky dory. Not hanky panky. um okay. Zimbabwe, Chile, oh, there's Nicholson, Sweden. Like again in the Sweden thing. Like I'm trying to get to the fucking end. In the Sweden thing. Like I'm trying to skip over things. But it's like, so this Nicholson, Elsa Nicholson, very masculine. Okay, fine. She's a tomboy, whatever. Who cares? Nobody in the family ever wanted to talk about them as anything other than friends, blah blah blah. Yeah, it's that Nicholson should have been born a man. Why did she think this? Let's listen carefully and try and divine why she would think such a thing. Is it possible that she internalized the homophobia and misogyny of society? That when she was young, she played softball with the sailors near the naval yard in Stockholm, and they called her Niklas. So she behaved in non-feminine ways. She looked masculine. Society interpreted her as a boy and told her, like, oh, you're a boy. Hello? Do we not see what the fuck happens here? VF says my ex was a teacher that needed to lie about it, and she pretended to be dating my imaginary brother, Jeff, my drag name, the whole time. We had to hide the reality of our relationship for the sake of her job that wasn't accepting. Yeah. Yeah. Um, like, I also don't understand, like, how you can be a lesbian and study women's studies or whatever, and think that, like, homosexuality existing in the category of love that dare not speak its name is like a good thing in any way, in any situation. Like that is not proof of anything. That's proof of repression or like silencing or like in a lot of cases, like in the very, very beginning. in the very beginning of this book, the first couple of concepts of lesbianism is actually not even lesbianism. It's like mutual masturbation and stuff like that. And so, like, oh, what the fuck? What was I saying? Oh my god, VF. VF says she cried a lot about how we were treated. That broke my heart. I'm so sorry. Well, I don't like for both of you. Like that is so horrible. And this is like, presumably in the last decade or so, right? That's what I mean. Like, is this author even a fucking lesbian? Like when I hear that, it makes me sad. I don't think like, oh, could have been worse. Um, yeah, that's really horrible. Stop being so noisy. Like 20 years ago, more like 15. Yeah. But I mean in comparison to this book that's like very recent, obviously. Um, yeah. What was I saying? I don't know. I'm definitely being pretty harsh on this book, but like I don't know. It's like if she hadn't marketed this as like a lesbian, if she had marketed this like she does make a distinction at the beginning that it's like very hard to differentiate as like who is like exclusively homosexual and who is like a bisexual because she's like what we have is like this woman fell in love with this woman and then they had sex or something or like they were both nuns so they never got married but they had sex with each other like are they lesbians or bi like who's to know and so like there is definitely like some degree of gray area that needs to be like expected when you're discussing this stuff historically but I just I don't know. This book leaves like a very bad taste in my mouth. If you're going to say that it's about lesbian specific stuff, start making it about a bunch of random bullshit. And like it seems to me that this book is like a lot of it is about like society, how they perceived them, how they treated them, how these lesbians behaved because of the way society instead of being like what was the lesbians experience? What was the lesbians like resources or like abilities or like options? Like I don't know. I just I mean I guess part of it is that she's an academic. Okay, I'm gonna read some live chat and then I have to go because I have been awake since 4:10 and it is now 9 and I need to be at wake in 4:10. So I need to like be unconscious very soon. um Dragon says we were better off in the late 80s, early 90s. Then Judith Dumbwaiter Butler came along. um Lita says, Benji, thank you so much for holding the live streams, by the way. VF is like, thanks, GNC. Yeah, no, like, guys, thank you for coming. The live stream would be a nothingness if you weren't here. Like, what is a live stream without viewers? It's nothing. Okay, so let us wrap this shit up. How many pages are left in this fucking piece of shit book? I need to finish it. So we are on page 127. Oh, the conclusion is less than 10 pages. Let's look at this. Then there is like when I put on Goodreads what page I'm on, it keeps being like you're only 30% of the way through the book because there's so many annotations and notes and stuff. That is the annotations and notes and stuff. So what we have left is this. So what I might no, I still have to do it separate cuz okay, the idea is that there can be like a playlist that's an audiobook basically. Um So I'm gonna do 10 separately, and then I might do like an overview of like the entire book. Um, yeah, and then hopefully, we'll start. Well, not hopefully, we're gonna start a new book. Um, Although I'm thinking more like an anthology of essays, maybe because like, or maybe just book a book with shorter chapters, or do like sub chapters. Because like this, I was thinking to do this next. Oh yeah, Momo is there. Mama, Mama, come. Mama, come. No, come here. Okay, well, I was gonna show her to Q, but okay, this for example, this book is 4 chapters. Look how many pages it is. How many hours of each chapter is that? So I don't know. I have to subdivide things, but we're gonna start something new soon. So tomorrow, aw, VF, that is so sad. Tossstone said it is harder being accepted as a lesbian mother now than when my son was born 30 years ago. That is so shitty. VF, do you do you do you always refer to Judith Butler as word salad witch? Should that be like her moniker on this channel? VF says bisexuals with that level of homophobia are not good dating material. Yeah, that's what I've heard. Like, I have categorically avoided all bisexuals because I don't know how to tell when they're that. Although it seems that most lesbians are like a very similar level of fucked up in many ways. So schools are shit. Tossstone says, yeah. Okay, so tomorrow live stream at 11 a.m. because I'm done work at like 9:30 and should be home by 10. So by 11 we should be able to live stream. Um, I'm pretty sure tomorrow I'm gonna just be talking about 2 different essay articles. Um, I kind of am wanting to move away from the like intra community GC drama things. Like, not that I'm against it, but I just kind of feel like what is what is the positive effect that that has, or like what is the positive outcome of that? And I feel like doing these more female focused things, that it's more like constructive. Um, yeah. Grey Witch is like she doesn't deserve to be called a witch. Grey Witch, are you a pagan or like an actual witch, or do you just take on that name to be generally like, the witches that you didn't burn and whatever? Um, okay, so live stream tomorrow at 11 a.m. As always, if you want me to cover something on the live stream, you can email it to me. Also, please share the live stream like tonight-ish, so people show up tomorrow. Okay, I'm going to let you go because I need to sleep because I need to wake. Oh, Tossstone says she's gonna miss out. I'm sorry. Um, I just thought it would be good to do it earlier once in a while because I figure that way some people that can't usually join in can join in. Um, but also, oh, I was thinking about it. Do you think word salad worm? That's better. Yes. Do you think it's like a good thing if I have my stream scheduled at the same time every single Friday and Sunday, and that way people can like schedule to show up? Anyway, okay, I'm gonna finish the stream. I will see you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. Please share the link and whatever, show up and like things and whatever. Okay. Good night, sisters. Bye.